Hey, what's going on, you beautiful human? Welcome back to the Spiritual Show. I'm your host, Danielle Grant, and today we are continuing the conversation on astrology. So, before we get into this today, one is I want to just make sure. Yes, I have what I need in front of me. But before I do that, I just wanted to tell you two things. Number one is that the Mindfulness Playbook class on the Spiritual Room is now available, and it is a 2 hour interactive video course that is teaching you how to create a mindfulness practice and routine in your life. And it's really amazing. And I think you're going to enjoy it. So if you want to go ahead and check it out, you can head to the link that I'm going to post on the bottom of this, which is www.thespiritualroom.co/mindful place. And you can go ahead and get instant access to that. And once you register for that, you will also gain access to the Mindful community, which is a place that we host meditations every Monday. And the second thing that I wanted to share with you is that the spiritualroom.co website is up. It hasn't officially launched, but it is up, and there's some really awesome blog posts on it. And I'm sharing that with you specifically because I don't know why keep wanting to say last week, but I'm just going to actually switch over my Wi-Fi. It looks like my Wi-Fi is lagging here. One sec. Okay, it looks like we're back up and running. Perfect. But I was sharing that with you because on Tuesday, we host a spiritual show as well. And I was actually opening up the conversation about astrology and talking about how astrology isn't science. And if it's not science, then what is it? And I was posting that blog up on thespiritualroom.co information into the context of that. And then the replay for last week is on there as well. So you can go ahead and check that out. And I see that we have someone live with us today. Good morning. Let me know in the comments. I could probably take a guess on who you are, but let me know in the comments who is here. And if you had a chance to watch last week's astrology video that we did. I have to tell you, I have these things on the floor that tell me where to stand. And I was standing way too close last week. So if I really back it up here, I think it gives a better shot for the person here. But one of the things I shared last week, or I don't know why I keep saying last week. It's because I do these twice a week. This week was this video that I found on YouTube that was actually called um, "Astrology Isn't Science, So What Is It?" And in that video, there was some really good information, which I talked about in the previous video on this. But there was a couple points in it that I wanted to highlight and just talk about today. So one of them is this idea of quantum entanglement. And the reason why I'm bringing up this idea of quantum entanglement is because when we can start to remove the word linear from our lives and we start to live in this place of quantum or dimensional, then we can kind of see things differently. And to really understand astrology in its full capacity, we need to be thinking in a quantum mindset. We need to be thinking in a expansive, a dimensional mindset, not a linear mindset. And so I wanted to highlight that because he actually talked about this quantum entanglement. And the quantum entanglement is something that scientists are trying to study for themselves and struggle to study it because they're trying to measure it within a empirical or whatever system that they're measuring it in that cannot be measured. And that's what I was sharing in the last video, was that you can't really measure it because it's not science. But understanding that it's a quantum aspect of us allows us to maybe think about how it can impact our lives differently. And in the previous video, I was talking about how it's kind of like the puppet strings of our life, and it as the planets move, depending on where we are and what our DNA within our body is and where we were born, is how it impacts us. But to think like that is quantum. It's dimensional. It's not linear. It's not saying that there's only one way. And so I'm bringing this up at the beginning because I think it's important that you really come from this idea that if you're going to get behind astrology or stand within astrology, you want to really come from this idea and mindset of it being quantum and dimensionally, which will help you absorb the information and understand it and really apply it into your life better. Hey, Neil, what's going on? Good morning. Always grateful to see you. We have Neil is an OG in my life from my previous business, your mindset mentor. And of course, he is here in the spiritualroom.co. Now, Neil, did you get a chance to watch last week's video? And if you did, pop in the comments what would be something that was a takeaway for you? Maybe something that was new or something that you just reheard and that was valuable to you or important. Let us know in the comments. And as well, if you're watching this replay, let us know in the comments what is something that you took away from the last video talking about how astrology isn't science and really explaining on a deeper level what it is. I think we might be having some Wi-Fi problems today, but that is all right. Okay. So one of the other things that the video talked about is one of the questions that came up in it was, can astrology describe more of our well-being and how we relate to others? Can astrology describe more of our well-being and how we relate to others? As you begin to understand this and you follow it, you see the similarities and the coincidences between what the planets are doing and what is manifesting in your life. So in this question is, can it describe more of our well-being and how we relate to others? Yeah, it absolutely can. But the only way that it actually can is if we allow ourselves to see that. So are you someone who looks at the astrology that you're learning and looking at it, oh, if I apply this in my life in a way that I can maximize these energies, which is what I was talking about in the last video, it will allow me to understand more of my well-being. It will allow me to align with more of my well-being and how we relate to others. There'll be some times where Molly, who is someone I referenced, Molly McCord will talk about how we go in seasons sometimes and we're actually in one right now in October. You go through seasons of relationships and needing to look at them. And if you look at your life, there's oftentimes seasons in your life where you're looking at more of your relationships or you're questioning them more. And it really can allow us to relate to others because if you understand that the planetary energies are indicating that you might be whatever their alignment is and how it aligns with you are to experience this inner desire to relook at your friendships, to maybe clean up some of your friendships, just to kind of clean up some of that energy, then it allows you to understand how you can relate to others more because it allows you to understand that you are in control of that. And if you understand in that month that you're being asked to look at your friendships and see which ones don't work, then you understand that that polarity that you have or that resistance that you have with that friendship or that relationship is no longer serving you. It's allowing you to relate that, hey, this person I've outgrown, or maybe we're just not vibrating at the same frequency, and I'm being given an opportunity right now to move beyond that. So, yeah, astrology absolutely can describe more of our well being and how we relate to others. It can also help you understand the greater impact of how we actually are connected to everybody. And this morning I was reading a book that was reminding me of the three different phases we move within a spiritual awakening. And it goes from being third person to second person to first person, meaning first person is we're all connected, we're all intertwined. And the astrology is all connected and all intertwined. So it really does help us understand because it's helping us understand not only ourselves, but the collective as well. What's Neil saying here? Did not have a chance last week. I'll watch it later. Yeah, no rush, Neil. You can even just head to the blog and read it there because it's basically went into it there, but definitely something good to listen to in the background. All right, let's see what else I got here. I got some notes. So one of the other things that they talked about was how do seasons affect where you are? And this was I personally think, a really cool one to understand because our life does move in seasons. In fact, Mother Nature moves in seasons, and we move to the rhythm of Mother Nature, which means if she has changes, it doesn't matter if you're in the northern or western hemisphere, you're in the energy of that change. And typically the changes are, again, it doesn't matter where you are, but summer is one of more of like that airier, brighter freedom feeling, right? Is the season that you're in. When you move into the fall, it's more of the transformational kind of get regrounded into self, get some new habits. As you move into winter, it's really getting focused on something that I was going to say something that focuses on moving you forward because in hindsight, the mentality that lots of people have is winter is where you kind of do your work or get things done that allows you the time freedom in the summer season anyway. So it's kind of that season that you move beyond transition and getting grounded, and then it's doubling down, and then spring comes and it's revival and renewal and just this newness of energy. So how do seasons affect where you are? Well, when we're talking about this in context of astrology, every season we move into has different astrological events, and they're all different. They're not the same year after year. Sometimes it takes thousands of years for a certain astrological event or a trine of certain planets or stars to come back around. So it's not the same every single year, which is why it's so fascinating to look into astrology and what it can tell us about our lives, because there's so many different variables in the astrology world. Is infinite. And so we just never know what we're going to be delivered with. And that's why it's important to listen to people who do astrology and who can convey that information to you so that you can understand what it is that those energies are saying. But they move in seasons as well. And what I've discovered is a lot of the times in my particular case, I'm in a northern hemisphere. When it's this fall season, which we're in right now, a lot of the astrological events are speaking to this idea of transformation and change. That's just how the planets are aligning. Now, if you think about that for a second, it's like, is that a coincidence? I don't think it is. Like, how is it all of a sudden that these energies in astrology, when you research them, become coinciding with the types of seasonal energies that Mother Earth and us as humans, spiritual beings having a human experience, are actually experiencing? So, how do the seasons affect where you are? Well, they affect where you are because they offer you these energies of transformation or momentum or newness or freedom or lightness. And so they really do impact you. But if you just go on living your life as if everything's 12 months and it's all the same and there's just seasons and fall and winter and you just can't wait for summer, then you're kind of missing the point of leveraging the energies that we can live within, and then going one step farther and leveraging the energies of the astrological events, which are undoubtedly impacting all of us on a human physical level. One of the other things near the end of the video that it went into was this idea of medical astrology. And in the ancient days, back in the day, I don't know the exact time frame, but back in the day, the medical professionals that we would call them today did in fact leverage astrology to understand people's illnesses. And obviously medical in this day and age is 2021, so it's kind of crazy to talk about medicine because it's very disruptive right now, but back in the day, they didn't have charts like we would go to in traditional medicine now. And so they had to do it based on really the person. And so what they started doing is they actually started tracking symptoms that people were having based on astrological events. And so they actually started talking to people who understood astrology and asked them to educate themselves so that they could bring that information into their medical practice and actually diagnose their patients with what it is that they were experiencing. And that is how you start to see this rhythm and this synchronicity of, wow, during this certain type of the year, based on these events and the actual season that the planet is in, this person is experiencing this type of illness and it's being triggered by this underlying thing that they're not looking at. And it's being brought up right now, which is triggering the illness or the disease because they're not looking at it. However, we're being given the opportunity to look at it. Back in the day, we didn't understand that. And so people would get ill and they'd go to the doctor. The doctor would leverage astrological events to see what it is that that person, based on where they were, what their astrology was, and how it could be impacting their life. And that's how they were actually tracking their patients and how to diagnose them. And then as time went on, science came in and basically said it was flawed and they couldn't measure it. And so they actually pulled it out of the medical system. But at the root of the medical system, they in fact leverage astrology and the energies of it to understand the things that people were holding on to. And if they were able to tap into that energy and the opportunity to clear in that moment, there was no pharmaceutical needed. I mean, back in the day, it wasn't. It was a natural medicine. And so I found that really fascinating because I personally didn't know that fact, that they leveraged it in the medical field prior, because we look at medicine now and it's completely different. And so again, when we're talking about astrology, why would we not want to investigate it more? Why would we not want to learn about it more and gain more knowledge and wisdom on it? We would, because it really is the truest essence of us and gives us a good guiding path or awareness of what is going on in our life. And that is exactly why they used it back in the day. So just a really cool fact there. And then I just wrote another note here. The complex number of factors that contribute to any person's health and illness instead of a blanket. Again, if you go to the doctor now, you're getting a blanket diagnosis based on what the medical has decided that it is. Where back in the day, they actually tracked the energies and what was going on to actually give you the diagnosis. So I just think that's super cool. The other thing that astrology really helps us with is helps us feel connected. It helps us feel connected to something beyond this linear world. Again, I was saying we have to think of astrology and quantum. When you begin to think of it in quantum, you begin to feel connected because you don't feel so isolated. When we live in a linear journey, we feel very alone. There's only one way to go. So if you're happy, you're happy. If you're sad, you're sad. If you're depressed, you're depressed. This is the only way to go. But when there's quantum, it's a fluid motion it's a fluid level of emotions. It's a fluid experience of emotions. And so when you begin to tap into this astrology, you find this inner peace inside of like, oh, this feels comfortable, or I feel more connected to myself, or I feel more understanding of myself, or I know more of myself. It's because you're truly, honestly connecting into your actual energy, the thing that is you. So I thought that was really cool. So those were just some of the notes that I took on that particular video. Again, if you want to watch it, it's in the link from last week, but I will also add it into the link of this week's video so that you can watch it. It was just a quick little video. I think it was like 7 minutes long. But just to wrap up this conversation today, Neil, if you have any questions or anything or any feedback you'd like to share, I always appreciate that. And anyone else watching the replay, leave us some comments. Let us know what's going on for you. And again, if you're someone who's looking to develop more mindfulness and to create a true routine for yourself, check out the Mindfulness Playbook class. It's a 2-hour interactive class. It's ready to go. It's amazing. And it's really going to help you. I think you're really going to like it a lot. So you can head to www.spiritualroom.co/mindful-plays to enroll yourself in that. And as well, once you enroll in that, you'll be given the link to join the Mindful community or the Spiritual Room community, which is actually a free community. So if you are not interested in the class and you want to join the community, then, well, right now you can't join any other way than through the Mindfulness Playbook class. But eventually up on the website, I will have some links so that you can join the community and the link to access that. It's a interim community as we build out a more robust and an app at the Spiritual Room. But before I wrap this up, I just want to share a conversation that I had yesterday with someone who I am a partner with in a business. And one of the businesses that we are creating is a spiritual container for growth. And one of the reasons why we decided to create this container of growth is because the spiritual journey needs support. The spiritual journey needs wisdom. The spiritual journey needs neutrality, and it needs quantum. It needs dimensions. And it's very difficult to find that, especially in the online place. And so we decided that we wanted to create this container for people who are spiritually awakened, that wanted to be supported more, that wanted to continue to awaken and evolve within themselves in a very safe, supportive way, and a place that had the wisdom that would allow them to do that. But yesterday we were doing some planning on it. And a little bit through it, it kind of came up into this idea of what are we going to share within this container? It's a 12-month container. What does the curriculum per se look like? And after we started talking a little bit, we kind of went down the rabbit hole of just spirituality and what this all is. And we ended up on the rabbit hole of astrology. And I was explaining to my business partner, Trevor, that astrology really is the puppet strings of our life. And I know that I talked about this in the last video, but I'm sharing this specific story because I was sharing with him a little bit about astrology and these puppet strings. And to be honest, the look on his face was just very like, I don't understand what you're talking about. I don't really understand this. And is this real? I want to believe it, but like I'm unsure and I'm skeptical. And you can feel it, like you can feel the vibration of it. But as we started talking about it and I explained it a little bit more and I explained about, the actual why you have a horoscope and why they choose to connect all of those things at the time that you're born, at the place that you're born, and how that looks beyond, you could start to see the wheels turning a little bit more. You could start to see that connection, which is what I was just talking about, a little bit more to something that felt true, something that felt not true to the ego, which is the human self, but true to self, the inner self, which is understanding of astrology. And we continued the conversation. And at the end of it, he openly said, like, I don't understand half of this, but it excites me to know that I can learn this information and I want to learn this information. But truthfully, like it sounds a little crazy. And if that person is you, it's okay. Like you're not supposed to look at astrology and know all the answers. I certainly didn't by any means. But it is something that you have to look at with an open mindset, an openness to discover what it is. And when you live in that place of openness, you're not so restricted to the wisdom that you're willing to hear. And again, as we kind of went on to this conversation, it went into all these ideas of how astrology does work and how to leverage those energies and how with more intention, you can actually create a different environment for yourself, or you can create a different result for yourself, leveraging those energies. And it's something for me is exciting is watching someone kind of have the connection of the dots of like, wait a minute here. There is this internal source that still is giving me wisdom and information, which is astrology. that I, the person, individual, can choose to accept into my life at whatever way that looks like for me. But there's this whole other thing that I can leverage that I've traditionally never leveraged before. And that's what this is all about. The spiritual show is all about helping you hear concepts or things that maybe you've been afraid of, or that you thought that you couldn't learn, or that you were resistant to, or you're intimidated by, and just to help you open up the conversation and to allow more exploration for yourself. And so, in closing out this live today, I encourage you to go ahead and hop on YouTube or hop on Google or whatever and type in astrology. Go check out Molly McCord, which is an astrologer that I've been following that is very fantastic. And there's many other ones as well that you can find what fits right for you. But become curious about this stuff. Don't think that it's off limits, and don't think that it doesn't have a place in your life, because the more that you look into it, the more that you become curious about it, the more that you feel that connectedness to it. And the connectedness is the thing that's going to keep pulling you towards it, because it is what it is, right? And again, when you awaken to that, it's a beautiful space. It's a beautiful thing because you understand that there's more beyond just what is. Neil says this is interesting. Interesting. Neil says, my mind is more open to some things that happened. Neil, I'm so grateful that you said that, because that is a true response for a lot of people. Is my mind is more open because of something that happened. And that is more often than not actually how you find something in this arena of spirituality. Is something happens in your life that triggers you to become curious about something, or the universe politely puts it in front of you in any medium, whether it's YouTube or whatever, and you become curious about it and you look into it. So again, reiterating back to Trevor, who, like, I never thought to look at this, or I didn't understand it. Something happened in his life for him to become curious about spirituality, which allowed the openness of the conversation of astrology to even understand it. And so if you're someone that you're like, I haven't had that thing happen, you probably have. You just think it's supposed to be something bigger than it is. And if we actually stop looking at it like it needs to be a thing, you'd see that it's right in front of you, right? There's always all kinds of things that are happening, and that little inner voice is asking you to maybe become curious about something. And when you follow that inner voice, that's when you become awakened to the stuff and you find the information that you're looking for. But again, my mind is more open due to something has happened. That's the only way that our mind can open, is if, oh, what's happening here? The only way that we can have that is if the mind is open to receiving it. And again, I was reading in my book this morning about how lack of knowledge is the reason why we live in stressful, restless, unproductive, unaligned places, is lack of knowledge. Lack of knowledge. We are not taught any of this information in our traditional education systems, post-secondary or even adulthood. We truly are not. It's becoming more and more present and prevalent now more than ever, because we are in a awakening of the new age. But truly, unless you have something that happens, you typically don't find this. And so, again, just an open mind is so required for any of this. For any of this. So if you guys have any questions, leave them in the replay, leave them in the comments. We will get back to you on them. Again, we host this show live every Tuesday and Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And for the month of October, we're going through the ideas of astrology. It's a lot easier for your mind to retain and understand this information when it comes to you consecutively, rather than bouncing around. And so for this month, we're going to be diving into all different ideas of astrology. And I can't encourage you enough to actually check out the blog at thespiritualroom.co, because that is where a lot of our information lives. Like this Saturday, we are sharing about the different types of astrological events that you're experiencing in the month of October. There is 8 of them, and we're talking about them on the blog. We're not talking about them on the live, we're talking them on the blog. So you definitely want to head over there and check it out, bookmark it, do whatever you got to do. I don't know if you can sign up for it. I might have to look into that. But definitely recommend that you look into that. Join the Spiritual Room shows. These are free every Tuesdays and Thursdays. Join the Spiritual Room community. Again, I will put a link. There will be a link under this description box on YouTube. And I think that's it basically for today. If you want to join the Mindfulness Playbook class, highly recommend that you do. We'll help you create more mindfulness in your life. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, leave them in the comments box. And otherwise, we will go ahead and see you guys next week for another spiritual show where we are talking more about astrology and how it actually influences and impacts our life. We hope you have an absolutely fantastic day wherever you are in the world. Namaste. Peace and love.